We got a teeny tiny 2-game slate around the NHL tonight, but that will not stop us from going all in with DraftKings contributor Geoff Ulrich and Rotowire's AJ Scholz and Paul Bruno. We're talking DFS here, guys. AJ, who is your favorite play at center?
Well, first, Emerson, we didn't have these kind of issues yesterday when Geoff was hosting. So maybe we need to go all in on Geoff.
No, careful what you wish for, pal. Although Geoff is,
I got your back, Emerson. Don't worry.
Thank you, Paul. That's why you're my favorite.
But anyway, to the 2-game slate, I think the team most worth targeting here is the Capitals, and I'm going to start with Kuznetsov at 6,500 at the center position. 3 points in 3 games back since returning from injury. He remains a fixture on that top line with Alexander Ovechkin. And I would suggest of the matchups tonight, Washington probably has the easiest, and that's very light, easy. He doesn't break the bank compared to Sebastian Aho, who's at 8,200. If you're not as high on Washington as I am, I would maybe look at Vinny Trocheck, 5K. He's playing on what I would call the Canes 1B line, with Svechnikov and fast.
Geoff, talk to me, dude. Center.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much value on this slate. Obviously, Ryan O'Reilly makes for a great pick, but I think you have to roster Sebastian Aho tonight. And I get the matchup on paper doesn't look that good. It's the Calgary Flames. The Flames have been getting killed by the Eastern Conference elites over the last couple starts. I think you might see, this is kind of a trend happening in the West right now. Some of these West teams, like the Oilers included, just that have started well, they're just kind of saying, maybe they're not as good as we think they might have been. The Flames have ridden some hot goaltending. I think they're going to be in for a world of hurt tonight. This Carolina offense, we already mentioned Trocheck. It's good from top to bottom, and Aho, 16 points in his last 10 games, averaging nearly 4 shots on goal. I think at 8,200, you could even argue, he's not a value, but he's certainly not overly expensive just for the production that he's gotten you. And I think a lot of people are going to be taking those as a stance of, I'll pay up for maybe Ovechkin and leave Aho out. I think that's the wrong thing. You should be stacking the Canes tonight, and I think you start with Aho at center.
Paul, Aho is nearly $2,000 more than the next guy at center.
Look, the guys are all over it, so I'm just going to wash, rinse, and repeat here real quickly. On a small slate, I think the ownership of the top options is a key at center because it's quite a drop-off below that. Compelling cases for all three mentioned. Aho priced at $8,200, $1,700 higher than any other pivot, but the guy's 16 points in his last 10 games. Calgary's on the second of back-to-back games, so I think they're a little vulnerable. And Carolina has one of the best home ice records in the league. In the other game, Kuznetsov is a very attractive option because he's still the caddy for Ovechkin. His price tag is only $6,500 while he has only 6 points in 10 games. This is a tempting option because St. Louis has been a little loose defensively. I can't wait to see AJ rip on Binnington later in the show. I'm sure he will, but he's given up 15 goals in the last 4 starts. The only other center I might consider is the aforementioned Vinny Trocheck, the second-line center in Carolina. He's got 8 points in his last 9 games and will be part of the power play as usual, so you have to have him in all the high leverage minutes. He only costs only $5,000.
Guys, let's go over to the wings and things department here. Geoff, your favorite play here. I'm looking at Ovi's $9,200, but on this 2-game slate, he has that multi-goal potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm going to leave the bigger names for the other 2 guys because, again, we got a short slate. We got to think about a little bit contrarian here. Is there anyone we can target that kind of no one's going to be on, or at least we're going to get really low ownership, but has some upside for us? And I think Daniel Sprong is a name that you should be really considering tonight. We mentioned already the Blues goaltending situation. Like Jordan Binnington, the Blues just don't mind getting into shootouts. And I think you'll probably see this game devolve into some kind of 4-3, 5-3 game. And Daniel Sprong is a player. He's proven not only this year, but like last year as well, he's fully capable of getting you 5 shots on net and a goal. He's a goal scorer at heart, and he plays over 14 minutes. He's on the second line for Washington. He's going to get a little bit softer minutes because teams always hyper-focus on the Ovi line. And again, he's just got a really good matchup. I think you look at a player like Sprong, he's averaging 2.6 shots on net, but those upside games are really what you want to be targeting, and especially for GPPs on a shorter slate. Sprong brings the upside. He's boomer bust, but again, I think you can get way lower ownership than on some of these other bigger names. I like targeting him tonight.
All right, Paul, who are you going to target?
Well, the grade 8's obviously a big choice, but he's going to be heavily owned, so I might prefer to take a look at least 2 of the 3 below him, Gaudreau, Teravainen, and Tkachuk. I prefer this option because I say all three of those guys are on positive streaks, and each of them is capable of having the big night of the night. So that's where I'll be headed, I think. Gaudreau, Teravainen, and Tkachuk, if I can fit them all in.
All right, talk to me here, AJ.
Yeah, I'll go with Gaudreau out of the three guys that Paul mentioned here. Comes in at 6,400. I'm going to fade using Ovi in this one. Again, the price tag is just so high. And I think there's other ways you can get a piece of his production. I mentioned using Kuznetsov, obviously. Only once this season has Johnny Hockey failed to register a point in back-to-back games. He didn't get a point last time out, so I fully anticipate him getting back on the score sheet tonight. He's the offensive driver for this club, and that's not changing anytime soon.
Let's go favorite DFS play here at defense, Paul. We know how Geoff feels about defensemen.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. As I committed to spending a lot on the top forwards, I have to use a little less on the blue line. That's why I would be leaning toward Slavin or D'Angelo on the Caps defense. Slavin is my choice because he's $1,000 cheaper. I'm good with that because they each have 8 points in their last 10 games. Slavin's on pace, in fact, for his most productive scoring season as a pro. He only cost $4,900 tonight. And I go even lower than that for Oliver Shillington of the Flames, another guy who's having a career year, and he only costs $3,200 tonight. So cheap value, but good quality on the blue line for me.
All right, good stuff. Let's go to AJ.
Well, I've obviously been taking slightly different strategy here than Paul tonight by fading both Ovi and Aho. And if you do that, I think you can comfortably pay up for both Karlsson at 6,800 and D'Angelo at 59 as the two most expensive guys on the board here. Karlsson gets you that Ovi share a little bit by being on the same power play. Obviously, they play 5-on-5 together as well. Karlsson's the fourth most productive blue liner this season. For D'Angelo, nearly a third of his points, 7 of 22, are scored with the man advantage, and he's also a high-volume shot producer. So I'm going top of the board for both Karlsson and D'Angelo tonight.
Geoff, what's your strategy at a position you just despise?
Just hate defensemen. Oh my God, how do they even play this game? I don't know, but I think I'm on board with AJ's strategy. You got to pay up for Karlsson. It's just such a wide gap. When there's this wide a gap between the top player at his position and then the next rung, I think you really need to get up to John Karlsson tonight. Again, you're getting a piece of the Capitals' best thing, and even if you don't pair him with Ovechkin, Karlsson has just produced lately. 10 points obviously in his last 10 games as well, but he's put himself in the Norris Trophy candidate discussion now as well. But just from a DFS standpoint, averaging 15 points per game, 15 DraftKings points per game over his last 10 games as well. He's a great option. And if you're looking for like a real punt play, and I don't know if you need to do this on this slate, but Brady Skjei has been very productive for Carolina as well. He's playing well over 20 minutes a game. It's a player who, again, will just pop up with a goal and get you one of the bonuses as well. So if you want to pair Karlsson with someone really cheap, Brady Skjei is also in play tonight for me.
AJ, how about a favorite value play on this small slate?
Yeah, I've got two guys that I'm kind of targeting tonight. One for sure, and one we'll see. It starts with Seth Jarvis. He's a lock for me tonight at 3,100. That's criminally low for a guy that's got 14 points in 22 games this year. The fact that he's listed as a fourth liner, I think, is going to only serve to lower his drafted percentage here, but he's getting consistent looks with the number 2 power play unit there. And that's a unit that actually sees some ice time. Some teams, the second unit doesn't really get out there. The other guy is going to be dependent on the Caps line rushes at practice this morning. We tentatively over at Rotowire, you check out our depth charts. We've got Garnet Hathaway slotted in as the right winger on Ovechkin's line, and he's going to come in at just 2,700. If he holds on to that spot, I think this is a great way, again, to get that share of Ovi without having to pay up. Obviously, if they move him to a different line, I'm not quite so high on his value here.
Geoff, who you like for value?
I mean, I've given out like 5 guys under 4K
Yeah.
already, but there's with the salaries. I mean, there's a lot of cheap guys. It's kind of nice because you almost don't have to worry about salaries tonight. It's just one of those nights. I think Brandon Saad is another player like you really should be taking a look at. Tarasenko most likely out with COVID. I mean, I haven't seen any updates, but if he's been ruled out, but likely not going to play. Last I heard. A guy like Saad, obviously already playing on the top unit, but going to get more usage now on that top power play for the St. Louis Blues. He's a complete boomer bust player, but in these situations, he's more likely, obviously, to get 3 or 4 shots on net. If he finds the back of the net, he's really cheap, and you can pair him easily with a guy like Ryan O'Reilly. So Brandon Saad in this position, again, getting more usage on the top power play unit in the NHL, why not?
All right, Paul, I know there's been a lot of value shared already, but do you have a top value play?
I do, and it's linked to the thought that OV needs to be in your lineup. If you go that route, you can actually stack the Caps top line, and the reason why was spelled out very clearly by AJ. If that situation holds and Garnet Hathaway joins that top unit again, he's come off a stretch where he's got 6 points in his last 10 games and 26 shots on goal too. Still, that's pretty cheap and terrific value in my opinion. The guy that we haven't mentioned yet, though, we haven't talked too much about the St. Louis Blues options, and I've indicated my preference for the Caps, but I might like to find a way to get Jordan Kairu into the lineup since he costs only $4,100 tonight. He's been a top performer for the Blues, as yet another breakout performer that I highlight on today's show. Got 12 points in his last 10 games and is better than a point per game year to date, actually. And I also like his shots on goal rate, which is verging on 3 per game.
All right, guys, we'll wrap it up here. Favorite sportsbook bet, DK Sportsbook bet. Paul, quickly.
I am a little surprised that the Caps are only a -105 fave on the road. Having mentioned the Blues' loose defensive record in Binnington's last 4 starts, that vulnerability is sure to be tested by the Caps' high-octane offense, which is healthy, save for Anthony Mantha. I think this is the game to target, as I see the other one as more of a toss-up.
AJ.
I'm going to look player prop in this one. I know I've been talking Caps all day, but I actually really like Oscar Sundqvist of the Blues to score a goal at +425 on the DK Sportsbook. He's going to get a bigger opportunity with Tarasenko on the COVID list. He's going to play with Brandon Saad and David Perron.
And Jeff?
Honestly, I think you just take the Carolina Hurricanes on the money line. I mean, they're only -180. It sounds like a small line, but I mean, this Calgary Flames team has just gotten throttled their last 2 times out against similar Eastern Conference opponents. I think they're outmatched here. I think the Hurricanes continue the pain for the Flames tonight, and I think that's a pretty good value, to be honest, with Carolina at home.